We bought one of the cheapest narrowboats that we could find.
Narrowboats can cost anywhere up to £175,000, but we only paid £13,800. And that's because our boat needed a full restoration. However, after jumping into the rebuild, we discovered it needed to go back to its bare bones, including a full rebuild on the engine. Just like the rest of the boat, this engine bay has been very neglected, so we're going to restore it and upgrade it.
Before we tackle the main part of the engine bay, we need to move the gas locker floor up. Reason being is, this hole here lets water in.
Although that drain had done the job for 35 years, we are trying to improve every part of our canal boat. So we're removing the bottom half of the gas locker and moving it up about 50 mil, so 2 inches. That way the drain is going to be a lot further from the water line. So when boats pass by, we ain't going to get water splashing in to our gas locker. And as easy as that.
This is the piece of metal that we cut out of the gas locker. We're going to trim it off around the edge and clean it up and put it back in.
This don't look like much, but underneath all of that rust and mould, there is some nice metal. So we trim off the edge and give it a good old clean, ready to be reinstalled. What a surprise, Brad's doing nothing again.
I'm not doing nothing, I'm playing Fishing Clash.
Fishing Clash?
Yeah, it's a game.
As well as hitting it with the grinder, we also treat the metal with a bit of rust remover just to make sure it doesn't have any problems in the future. Then on goes a little bit of temporary primer.
While we've got this massive hole in the floor, we're going to take advantage of that because there's going to be limited access once the floor panel's back in. So we're going to paint and prepare that now.
This was a good idea at the time, but what we didn't know is things were going to change quite dramatically, and you're going to see that a little bit later on in the video. Time for another upgrade. In this gas box, it used to be flat, and then obviously the water can get trapped around the bottles. Now we're putting this, a little box section frame, and that's going to keep our bottles off the floor. Our thinking with this is that the gas bottles will sit slightly off of the flat floor, allowing any moisture or water that does get into the box to escape out of our brand new drain. So we use a little bit of box section, tack it around the edges before fully welding it all out, ready to replace the floor. In the corner where our new drain's going to be, we've actually cut this bar short, and because it's tube, we've just welded the end in. That way no water can get inside when the new drain's there. This way we can prevent any rust inside of our tubes, and it's going to last a lot longer. Everything is tacked in place. Next step is to fully weld it all out. Floor is in. Next up, we need to add in the drain that's no longer in it. So we're going to cut that right now. The thing we're aiming for when adding in this drain is that it's flushed with our floor, because we don't want moisture getting trapped behind a little lip. And another thing that I'm aiming for is for it to match the drains that are at the front of the boat. So visually, everything looks lovely. The way I cut this out is to drill the 4 corners, and then I'll put the angle grinder to work. And because it's so small, we had to give it a little punch with the hammer and remove the pieces.
We've had this tool for ages.
I have used it. Before this, I have used it exactly 0 times.
We've never used it. We've had it for ages.
But now
we've got a boat.
Now I'm glad we do have that tool. So using a little grinder, we clean up all of the edges before using a file to round them off. Last episode, we cut these drain holes out so they're lower down. And remember I said I was going to come back and shape them? Well, that is what this and this is for. The main thing we want to do with these is get them to match that front drain that we added in. That way everything is uniform and it all ties together. You've told us off again, and this time, because we put these square corners in our windows, so we have a solution. We're going to use a round file it into the corner, and then we're just going to smooth it in on all of the windows, so it's better. And that's what we're going to end up with, slight curve on the corner. Let's do that 39 more times. It wasn't a difficult job, but obviously there was a lot of corners. So we make sure we cover every single corner, that way we try and eliminate that chance of a stress fracture. It's not as round as the originals, but it should still help in the long run. That is the new drain hole done. Now you can see a comparison, so that is, believe it or not, that is what was there, this wibbly wobbly, and that is the nice shiny new one. Next step, fill in the hole. Before we get any metal added into the hole, we need to clean up the area around it so that we can weld. And then we use another method of making the shape for our repair piece, and that is using a bit of duct tape and cutting the hole out. Innovations out here. I sacked a bit of duct tape over some fresh metal, marked around it, ready to be cut with a grinder. And it worked out okay. Oh God, fit first time as well. With our piece cut and fitting first time, I get the welder out and it's time to buzz in that repair piece. And with it all welded, we need to grind it nice and flush so that when it's painted, it looks perfect. We always test our upgrades here at the Home Improvements channel, so if we was in a stall and our gas locker started to get water, it wouldn't. So I think, if you ask me, that's another great success. We're done with Captain Phil, time for Fabricator Phil. And we're going to start with the stairs. Plan with these brackets is, one of them we're going to weld here, and that can then be bolted to our removable floor, so that stops this. And then a second one's going to get installed below it like this, and that is going to give the back of the stairs something to screw to. Originally the stairs were permanently welded to the old floor, and the back of the stair, or the riser, was also screwed to the original floor. And because we don't have that anymore and everything is removable, we need something to fix our back of the stair to, and also we want to bolt that staircase in place. Brackets are welded on. I've just knocked them so they're now parallel to our new floor and also parallel to where our riser is going to be for our stairs. Next job, we need to mark out for where we're going to be putting our fixings.
Phil, you ever used a riv nut gun before?
Nah. I have no idea if I'm doing this wrong, right?
Phil's reading the instruction, but what it does, it puts a thread inside the steel, and then that allows us to put a bolt in it.
Brad lied, I did not read the instructions. I just wound things into it until it worked. So these are called riv nuts, and it basically puts a threaded insert into the bar. That way we can bolt things in and out as we please. Moment of truth. With the riv nuts added, we needed to slot it into place and make sure it all worked as it should, and of course it did. I knew it would work. We cranked it all up just to check how stiff the staircase would be. Come on. No more wobbly stairs. Riv nuts are done. Next job is here. We want some angle iron to pick up the end of our floor. There was never anything there, so we're going to add some bits of angle iron. The original type of floor that this had, we wouldn't need these, but when we install our floor, these are going to be very important, and you'll see that later on in the series when we add in our new flooring. So I used some angle iron and weld it to the bulkhead.
While Phil's welding up the other part of that boat, if you do want updates on this boat build, if you hit the bell notification, every time we drop a brand new video, it will notify you. So make sure you hit. Bob said, if you don't clean the little bobbly bits off your weld, it's an 8 out of 10. You just got to bump start the grinder. Bump start it, Phil.
Angle iron is done. Now we're going to concentrate on prepping the engine bay for paint. So that includes removing this, which I believe is the weed hatch. Our weed hatch was held down with a load of bolts and nuts. Some of these have quick releases, but we don't have that luxury. When I was at ABC Leisure, Dan actually told me if you get something caught on your propeller, you can reach in and clean it without having to get underneath. So what a good idea. So basically, that's what's in there. I'm a propeller. You're something and it isn't a propeller. With Brad's forehead removed from the weed hatch, I get on with cleaning all of the rust off, including the big chunks, using a little pick hammer. We've had a slight mishap, so when we was welding over here, if you look underneath, we have damaged our cables. We have got an extra job, and I love extra jobs here at the Home from the Channel.
This is not even going to be an easy job.
No, no.
Where are we going to find them?
We've got to match all these somehow. Anyway, to get that off, we need to get the panel off from the back. And of course, like every other fixing on this boat, they were rusted solid, so out come the Remover 5000 and an old wood chisel. We smashed the screws off to get the access panel removed, and now we have access to the controls. Anyone got one of these laying around? Let's use this chisel as a flat-headed screwdriver. Before anyone loses their mind about the chisel, this is what I use this particular chisel for. I won't be fitting any hinges with it. 4 screws were holding in the little control panel, and then it was just a struggle to feed it out the back with all of the damaged cables. And as easy as that. Engine controls and cables are gone. Next job, we're painting the engine bay. And because one of you guys is winning it, we've now got to change what we're doing because Brad is an idiot and didn't read the instructions on the paint. We don't need it cleaned like it is. We need to sandblast it.
Not again. Not again.
Not again. Just like the grown-up version, we needed to hook on an air line and fill it up with some blasting grit. We've got to turn on the compressor. Well, it's on. Got to turn the air on. Great success. That's everything set up. Let's try and blast. Unlike Rob's blaster, this one's a little bit more domestic, so it takes a little bit longer, but we crack on with the staircase and it does a blinding job. Removing all of this paint is going to make for a much better finish when we come to painting our engine bay and also the little staircase here.
This sandblaster's good, but it's taking way too long, so we've had to call in someone very familiar on the channel.
I told them I'd be back.
After begging Rob to come, he arrived with the big boy blaster. Now we can get all of this bay cleaned.
This is the air compressor.
Yep.
It runs down this yellow hose.
Yep.
This blue thing is the aftercooler, cools the air down. It runs back down here to the pot. This is where the grit goes in. It runs down this hose, out this nozzle. Here's one I made earlier.
Now we know how that all works, let's get some grit lined up. We're going to be using quite a bit more because this is a bigger system, so a lot more is going to be flowing through. So we get it stacked up, fill the pot. The pot takes about 100 kilograms. Feed it all through a sieve so there's no bits and we ain't going to have any blockages. And we're ready to start blasting. He does that every mix, he does.
We're going to start blasting very soon, so we're going to have to put the main camera away because we broke the last one, so we're going to have to start filming the rest on the old iPhone. Philly is getting prepped up. Robbie is washing his hands before he's getting dirty hands.
This all may seem a bit back to front because we've already blasted the boat, but we never intended to blast the bay. We just wanted it clean, and that's exactly what we did. But after reading the specs on the paint, we realised that we was just cutting corners and it was going to be better to take this all the way back to bare steel and start from scratch.
We're just going to have a quick clear up, get all this dust up so that we can see what we're doing.
And mainly for filming. Good job, Robbie!
That's the engine bay clean. We fire up the machine. We're going to keep going. And if you want to keep updated on the Boat series, you have to hit the bell notification in the corner. Maybe drop us a like and a comment. Let's blast.
As well as the bay, there was a few extra bits that we hadn't got round to doing the last time, including where the control panel mounts and the top half of our railings. So Rob, like an absolute legend, got them all cleaned up, back to bare steel, cleaned inside of the gas locker. Now it's got its brand new floor, and also those rails like I just mentioned. Engine bay is done. We're going to do a couple more things while Rob's here because we love an extra. We're going to do our handrails and also this temporary paint that we put on the weld that we did. We're going to strip all that back because this needs to have a 2-part epoxy on everything. One thing I missed out is we also blasted that control panel that we modified because that also had some of that temporary primer on it just to stop it rusting until we was ready for the 2-pack primer.
Everyone was asking about where the sleepers was. Me and Rob are about to tackle that now. So we're going to sandblast where the sleeper was and add some 2-part epoxy. I've got a strand on my head.
There is a couple more spots at the front, but we're going to have to do that at a later date by hand. And because Rob loves a bit of punishment, we handed him a few more extras.
I love fishing, whoa, but I don't always get time to play it. That's why I play Fishing Clash. While they're in there blasting, I'm going to tell you guys at home why I love playing Fishing Clash. Because it features 50 different locations all around the world to fish, and it has hundreds of different species.
And it gives Brad an excuse to do even less work than he already does. So while Brad was having a good time sitting in his chair, me and Rob got all those extra pieces blasted back to bare steel, ready for a bit of paintwork. While playing Fishing Clash and exploring all of the exotic locations available, you have the chance to collect some rare lures and unlock legendary fishing gear, not including this hat. To download Fishing Clash, all you need to do is click on the link in the description below or scan the QR code that's on your screen, and don't forget to use our unique code THICUK for a $20 value gift and a free unique avatar. When you start the game for the first time, you go to the top right hand corner drop down menu and select gift codes and enter in THICUK for your free gift. Big thanks to this video sponsor, Fishing Clash. Happy fishing! Let's get back to work. As well as the rudder and the propeller, we got Rob to sandblast our tiller, ready for its new paint job. Because this was a rush job, we haven't sheeted up and Rob has absolutely ruined our unit. We can now clean up. Outcome, the baddest hoover we've ever seen to clear up all of that dust. It would have been nice to sheet it all up, but we just didn't have time, so we're left with all the mess.
Got a message from Phil from Home Improvements channel about making a pickup pipe for the boat. We've got some AN8 fittings. We're going to mount these to this piece of steel. We're going to cut around here, and then we're going to weld this stainless steel pipe, and then we're going to have this piece of pipe hanging down into diesel, and that will supply diesel to whatever he needs diesel to go to, like the engine, the heater.
Bob from the machine shop is going to wish he never gave me his number, So I messaged him in a bit of a hurry because we've had an idea for our fuel tank. And this little part that he's making us here is going to improve it. And you'll see how when it gets put into our fuel tank.
I've marked out my square using my Unilight tape measure. And then we're going to drill holes in these, pop them through, weld them on. Next step is drill a hole in that plate, the same diameter as this step here.
The reason we didn't tackle this job ourselves is because we don't know how to TIG weld. If we had a bit more time, we could have headed down to Bob's machine shop where he would have taught us and we could have used all of his tools. But this time we just had to get Bob to do the job for us. The reason there is 3 lines going into this is because we have a feed and a return for our engine, but we've decided to add another feed for a diesel eater. Normally this is teed off, but we prefer this idea. That way it's more permanent and a lot neater. If you like this sort of thing, make sure to check out the machine shop. This is all prepped up and ready to go. Now I need to cut a hole in the tank. Out comes our new removable floor, which makes plenty of space for us to mark out for our new panel that we're going to be inserting into our fuel tank. And don't forget, we've already emptied this and filled it up with water. That way we shouldn't have any explosions. That's the whole cut. Now we're going to drain this tank till it's fully empty. Not only are we upgrading the tank, we found out once we started to drain it, we're also cleaning it because it was full of a lot of rubbish.
That's the tank fully drained. There's about 40 years worth of sludge in there, so it's my job to clean it out.
Oh, I feel so sorry for you having to do 2 minutes worth of work. Before we weld this into position, I have to cut off the old pipes and then we're going to seal those in. These pipes drop right into the tank, but we're not too bothered about leaving those pipes in place. We just want to shut them off so no fuel can ever escape from them. So we clean up all of the areas where we're going to be welding and set up the welder. We've cleaned the tank, wiped it all down, but we're still going to put a little bit of argon inside this tank to remove any of the gases that might be left. Highly doubt it, but better to be safe than sorry. So this is just the argon line off the welder. With it filled with argon, we start to tack in the old pipes. So now they can't leak any fuel. And then it's time to get in that plate. We did have to bend this into position. It is an old tank, so it's not going to be completely flat. But with a little bit of pressure, we get it nice and tight and start filling up the seam with weld. A little quick job we've got to do, but this job is super important, and that is to add this little bolt onto our bulkhead because we need somewhere to strap our earths. Most important thing here is to make sure we've got completely clean steel and then we can weld it on. It was a small job, but a job that needed doing nonetheless.
When Phil was emptying the tank, a little bit of water spilled out and it's caused a little bit of surface rust. But what we're going to do, we're going to clean it up and then the painting can commence.
Who is that? Well, I'll tell you who he is. He's someone that's doing more work than Brad ever has. So we get that little bit of surface rust cleaned up and remove a couple of badges that we forgot to remove before we blasted it and cleaned off the paint that was sat behind. Then came a little bit of prep, and of course Rob is still here and he's still helping.
That's all the masking done. We're going to give it a quick blowout, hoover up, and then we're going to crack on with the painting.
After some investigation, it turns out that is Roy from UK Carp Tech. The paint we're using in the engine bay is the same as we used on the outside, and that is a 2-pack zinc phosphate primer. It is from T-Mac. Big shout out to those guys. They have hooked us up massively with the paint, and this stuff, let me tell you, it is solid. So if you want some, go check out the link. While Rob mixes up our new batch of primer, let me talk about the one that's already on the boat. I took a screwdriver to that primer and it does not budge. This stuff really is worth investing in.
The bay's ready, the paint's mixed up, the compressor's firing up, all that hard work, Now it's time to spray it. I've got to put an air fed mask on so I won't be able to talk. Just enjoy the spraying of the engine.
My favourite part about all this is Brad's got an air fed on and I don't have to listen to his stupid voice. So while Brad spectates with the camera, Rob gets out the spray gun and starts coating on our 2-pack primer. And he's getting it everywhere. He needs to get into all the little nooks and crannies because obviously this is raw steel. So now it has zero protection. So we need to make sure it gets coated everywhere. I'm going to be quiet so you don't have to listen to my stupid voice. Enjoy the rest of the painting.
The primer's dry in the engine bay. We do have some minor pitting, so we're going to fix that using this 2-part epoxy lightweight filler.
Wow, say that after a few beverages. So the person that actually recommended this was Nick, who done our survey, so shout out to him. This stuff is specifically designed for marine use. So you can't just use your typical car body filler or even easy fill. It needs to be for boats. Once it's thoroughly mixed through, we get the swim coated, and now it should be nice and smooth. As long as Brad does a good job, that is.
So I've got the filler all in the swim area. This bit here, the little observation hatch, this is the main bit we need to get flat because that's where the seal stops the water coming up into the boat.
We should be able to get a decent seal because we're using rubber when we come to replace this gasket, but a little bit of filler never hurt anyone. While Brad's working on the engine bay, I'm going to turn my attention to the engine, which needs a lot of prep work done to it before we paint it. The white paint that we threw on it was just a temporary coating to make filming a lot nicer when we reassembled it. But now it's time to get that all stripped back using some paint thinners, ready for its proper paint job. And that one's going to last a lot longer. As well as removing the paint, we also need to protect anything that we don't want to get paint inside of. Slowly stripping the paint off the engine. We are going to move it ever so slightly, so we're going to put it on 2 sleepers. That's so that I can get underneath so we can paint all the way around, because I don't want to just do the top. That's a bit of a bodge. Luckily for us, we don't have an engine hoist, and this engine only weighs about 5 million tonnes. So we swiveled it up onto some sleepers and get to some more cleaning. I've removed as much paint as I could with the paint thinners. Now I'm going to move on to a 120 grit and just sand all of these areas so they look a lot nicer. We're not expecting to get a mirror finish on this engine, it's just not that type of metal, but we do want to remove any loose flaky paint.
As well as the engine, we're also restoring the gearbox so it looks like brand new before we put it back inside our boat.
Brad starts to hit it with some of those paint thinners, and then once he's done that, he gets out a little bit of sandpaper.
So what Brad does is he deliberately makes this look hard, awkward, tricky. But what he's actually done is been highly intelligent, because now I'm doing it and he's watching.
Once Brad had swindled Chris into thinking that he wasn't capable, he grabbed a drill with a wire wheel on it, and him and Dan from Composite Kings get that gearbox looking like brand new.
Rather than paint the two separately, we're going to fit the gearbox to the engine so the paint will create a nice seal.
We're no experts when it comes to marine paint jobs, but from what we've seen, they pretty much paint everything. So unlike your car engine where you might strip parts off and paint them certain colours, boat engines seem to just have one paint coat over the whole thing. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Before we add any colour to this engine, we need to start off with that 2-pack primer, and then we can start looking at the colour.
While that primer is drying, me and Phil have one more job before we paint that engine, and that is to clean the prop shaft out. So where we have been blasting and painting, we've basically got to stick a pole through a hole really tight, and there can't be no debris in it, otherwise it won't work properly.
Don't worry, we did cover this while we was blasting. It's just grit and grime from all of the years that it's been installed in this boat.
Look at that. Look at that. That is perfect. That cloth is still brand new. I'll wash my plates with that later.
Primer on the engine has been left to dry for 24 hours. And now we can move on to the colour. With the primer completely cured, we need to move on to the top coat. And just like the primer, it's a 2-pack. So we've got the paint itself, and then we've got the hardener. Get it put inside the gun, get our air fed on, and it's time to start painting. The paint is nice and dry now, as you can see. So we can start putting a few bits on the engine ready to go back in the bay. We're not installing everything, but just things like the caps, removing the tape because we don't want to leave it on there too long, and a few of the plugs that go over the exhaust. As well as that, we put on the fuel filter that we removed for painting. This one's actually brand new, and a brand new pump for the oil. We use that to empty out the engine of oil when we need to do an oil change, because we don't have access to the sump. Of course comes the BWA sticker, and all the while Brad is sanding down that filler he installed on the swim.
That is the sanding complete. We're going to have a nice clear up and maybe get some paint on.
I don't know what Brad's been up to, but that looks like my kind of party.
I don't want to go up there and get the camera, so I've hoovered everything. I'm just going to go around and panel wipe everything before we paint.
Super important step to make sure we get proper adhesion on our paint.
In our quest for perfection, we're going to replace this old nasty prop shaft with this shiny new one, but yet it's highlighted another problem. The copper bearing is extremely worn.
What are we going to have to do?
We're going to need to replace it.
Great for whoever wins the boat, not great for us, because it's another job we've got to do.
The world's smallest spanner.
The brass tube is threaded into the boat, and it's also threaded into our gland, which seals it. So we use those big spanners and unwound it.
And as easy as that.
We're just mixing up the Belgian locker paint that we're going to paint the engine bay with.
Oh my God, Dan's back. Of course he's back, because we need someone to help us do all of the work. So after spilling paint over his hands, we get the paint gun into the bay and start spraying. This paint isn't the same as the stuff as we used on the engine. This one is specifically designed for bilges. And although this is an engine bay, there is a chance it could see water, so this seems like the perfect choice. Just like the primer, we need to make sure we get this everywhere. So we're spraying it into all of the gaps that you can't get to with a brush, and then we're giving the rest a full coat.
Everything's on the engine that we need to put on the engine, and then we're going to strap it up, get the Manitou in, and we're going to get it in the bay.
Who's going to drive the Manitou?
I'm going to drive it.
I just want to do a massive shout out to Penny for lending us her Manitou. We couldn't do it without her. We would have literally just been stuck. We can't lift it.
Speak for yourself, I would have had that on my shoulder, no drama. So with everything strapped up, we get it lifted, then realise we've got the engine backwards, so reassemble and lift it, ready to go in. We put the engine on backwards.
So now we've got the engine in the strop, so we're going to lower it into the engine bay.
Oh my God, Dan's back again. So with Dan's help, we lower our engine into position. Me and Chris was guiding it while Penny and Dan were doing all of the manoeuvring. And as you can see, it drops in a lot easier now that we've got that removable floor. So one of the straps has covered up one of the bolt holes, so we're just going to lever the engine up, clear it, and then hopefully you can drop it in its final position. It was on the mounts at this point, so we wasn't too worried about it dropping. It just got caught. Before I show you the finished look of the engine in the bay, we need to install this little gift that we've got from Allco and eat all of these. Lee, you know I'm on a diet. Anyway, let's get these LEDs installed. We're no stranger to these LEDs. They are Flex from Allco and they are amazing. So these tracks are designed for these LEDs. We give them a little bend. We're not sure if you should, but we did. And the reason we did that is because we wanted to shape them to our engine bay. Taped up the top so that we didn't get any marks on them when fixing them into place with a little bit of adhesive. And that is the LEDs finished. LEDs are done. Remember when we bought this boat, that engine bay was a mess. It was full of water. It had someone's patio in it. And now it looks like this. That is all we've got time for in this episode. Big shout out to everyone that's helped on this build so far and you guys for watching. Until the next one, I will see you later.
But before you do that, just make sure you download Fishing Clash. The link's in the description below. Love you, bye!
And Robbie!
We'll see you later. Love you, bye. It's 3 o'clock, we've done nothing.